Hello everyone, welcome to another Monday Tsene special. We will look at different mental health topics weekly. So today we're looking at adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs. So ACEs are defined as traumatic or stressful events that occur to children below the ages of 18. So children below the ages of 18 are known to not have their brain structure fully developed. This means that certain functions have not been established, for example, emotional functions. So if a child were to experience a traumatic event, a stressful event or injury below the age of 18, they're more likely to experience severe psychological and physiological effects from it. So, for example, if we're to expose both an adult and a child at the same time to the same stressful event, a child would more likely experience the negative implications from the event. However, this does not mean that adults do not experience any impact from traumatic or stressful events. It just means that because of the nature and the stage at which the child might be, they might not interpret the situation well. They might not interpret or process the situation well as much as the adult would. So stressful events can both occur directly and indirectly. So directly could be a child that is exposed to physical violence, abandonment, child neglect, family issues such as the loss of a parent through divorce, bullying, and emotional abuse. And then indirect would be if a child experiences a traumatic event or a stressful event happening to someone else. So this could be if they experience or if they witness violence between their parents. So that might also affect them negatively. So that is indirect. So, however, it is also important to know that not every individual or every child that is exposed to ACEs will experience physiological and psychological impacts, but it means that so not everyone who's exposed to ACEs will experience psychological and physiological impacts. But the more ACEs a person is exposed to, so if a person is exposed to physical violence, a child abandonment, neglect, emotional abuse, so if the more ACEs the child is exposed to, the likelihood will be higher than for an individual who has not been exposed to any ACEs. So we also have what we call the danger age. So the danger age is between the age of 2 and 5 years old. So a child who's between 2 and 5 years old, they are in a state where early stages of development, so they're still a toddler and they're very egotistic. So the world is about everything centers around them, about what they want, and really the emotional function has not been fully or well developed. So if a child experiences traumatic events during those ages, they're more likely, highly likely to be highly impacted by ACEs. So how does it look like for a child for an individual or child who has experienced ACEs in their how do they look like in their teenage life? How do they look like in their adult life? So in their teenage life, they're most likely to experience learning difficulties. They might engage in harmful behaviors such as suicide, or they might be suicidal or have suicidal ideations. They might become violent, physically aggressive, easily aggravated, non-compliant, difficulty following instructions, have poor peer relationship. So they might also be likely to isolate themselves from their peers or even at home. So they might have difficulties just navigating around their environment, their social environment especially. And how does an adult look like who had experienced ACEs in their early childhood years? So they might have difficulties in their interpersonal relationships. So they might expose their partners to physical violence, and they might also have difficulties in terms of relating with their partners. They are most likely to struggle in interpersonal relationships at work, at home, and they also have attachment problems as well as teenagers. So which can also mean that they will just have difficulties relating to others. They might be physically aggressive, emotionally abusive. So those are just some of the things or some of the implications that comes with a child who has been exposed to ACEs at a young age, and how if they go along without those ACEs being identified, and how they might look like, or what their life might be like when they're older. So what is important is that number one, to identify your own ACEs. So if you see that, or you identify that you have more than, I think the danger zone is when you've experienced, or when you can identify more than 4 ACEs in your life, is for you to firstly identify them, and then you can start with self-help work, or you might also seek counseling through therapy. So consultations with different health professionals who've been trained to help with emotional problems. But it's important that we understand that experiences that occur to children at a very young age do have a negative impact in their life, especially when they become adults. Thank you for tuning in, and have a beautiful week.